Hi quilty friends, I'm Belle from Seems So Me, and I'm really excited to share something with you I discovered while I was trying to create a way to make the hexies in a very efficient way that didn't involve a lot of time. So I am not one that enjoys hand stitching, but I love the little hexie blocks. I think they're so sweet. And so I have found a way using some things that I have here that one doesn't require me to cut my own fabrics by hand, as well as being able to leave templates inside the hexies and not have to remove them. So here's what it involves. It involves using a very firm roll of stabilizer. It involves using your Accuquilt die for hexies to make your template and to cut your fabric squares. And then you can have these cute little hexies and leave the template inside. So let's get started on how I do this. Hey y'all, it's Belle from Seems So Me, and I wanted to show you something that I have discovered with working with and making hexies. So I recently decided I wanted to learn how to make hexies for little flowers for different projects. After seeing several of my quilty friends doing it, I never thought it was something that I would want to do, particularly because it involved having to cut out a lot of fabric, templates, or even if I bought the templates, I would have to remove them from the back of the hexie. And I really didn't want to do that. However, I really wanted to make the cute flowers and the cute little blocks, hexie blocks. So I have stumbled upon something that is working well for me as I start to create my hexies. And I did this because we're going to be going camping quite a bit this year and traveling down to my father's, and I really wanted something to do with my hands. I'm not much of a hand stitcher at all, but this is really going to work well for me, and I wanted to share with you what I've discovered and what may work well for you. So many of you know I have the Accuquilt system, and it is going to suit me, and it is suiting me well to use that for hexies. This is the die that I have been working with that you would need from Accuquilt if you don't already have it. This is the die that has 3 sizes, and I use the first 2 sizes on it. So the first one here is for my template, and the second one here is for my fabric. And these turn out to be finished 1 1/4 inch hexies is what these end up being, okay, for what I showed you earlier, these. So you need this die, and it's die number 55011, as well as the mat that goes on top of it to be able to put this through your Accuquilt machine. Now I have the Accuquilt Go Big, which is the electric one, but we also have the Go Me, which is hand cranked. It's a small one, and it will take 6-inch dies. So this is 6 by 12, and my little bonus daughter has that one. So it will work if you just want to buy the hand crank Go Me rather than invest in the big Go Big that's electric. So I did want to mention that. So that is actually what you'll need to be able to cut your templates, which are these, as well as your actual scraps. I've been cutting up scraps, or, you know, if you want to trim down fat quarters or yardage or what have you. So here's what I decided to do that I just got to playing around with it and thought, you know, there's got to be some type of template that I can use besides like a thicker kind of cardboard or cardstock. I really didn't want to have to buy those, and I didn't want to have to remove them from the back of a hexie. So this is firm stabilizer. So it's really, really stiff, and I have a roll of it. I got this on Amazon, and you can see it's a pretty thick roll here. So what I have done is I have cut 2 1/4 inch strips, and when I do that, I accordion fold the strips into my Accuquilt die and cut out these individual templates. And these, what happens is they're very stiff, and when you wash your quilt, these will turn into like almost the fabric softener dryer sheets. It's that kind of material once they're washed, but you can leave them in. So that's the key. You don't have to pull these out. It gives it's still firm enough to where you can fold your fabric over, but it's not too firm to where you feel like there's something in there, especially after you wash it. Or if this is just for a small make, it's not so stiff that it's going to feel too stiff if you make a pin cushion or a handbag or a bag or whatever it may be that you make. So you'll need the stabilizer as well. So the first thing you're going to want to do is, I just have my roll of stabilizer. I've just rolled it over to the side. And you're going to want to cut 2 1/4 inch strips per width of this roll. So I've got my ruler here, and I will just go ahead and cut 1 strip there. And then what you'll do is, you've got this strip, and you're going to take your Accuquilt die, the one that I showed you, and it's going to be the smallest one, the top one up here, to be able to cut out the template. And you can get 9 of these from one pass through your Accuquilt. So I just line up the edge here and then fold it over accordion style. And I look to make sure that that is going to be covered and make sure I'll get the hexies. So I fold this over, and you will get a total of 9 hexies for your actual template. And again, like I mentioned, this is the firm or very, very firm stabilizer. I'll link where I got it from on Amazon and how much that was as well for you. And of course, these are not reusable. That is one thing about using this method here that I've accidentally stumbled upon and thinking about what would work. I didn't really want to use batting because I felt like it would be a bit too thick, and this is what I came up with. So you're going to fold that accordion style on top of there, and then put your mat on top, and then we will go pass it through the die machine. So here are the 2 machines. This is the Accuquilt Go Big. This is the electric version. And then I also have what is called the Go Me. And I'll show you both of them. First, I'm going to show you this one as far as the electric one, which is the one I use. The Go Me is the smaller one. That is the least expensive to purchase. It also comes free when you purchase the large one. We bought this one for my daughter so that she didn't cut herself using a rotary cutter. So that's hers. So let me show you how this works. So now that we've laid, remember our pieces there, go ahead and we'll slide this through. And it just feeds it through, so I don't have to push it or crank anything. And then when you take off your mat, you slide it. So rather than lift it straight off, you slide it. And here are your 9 hexie templates right here. There's 9 of them. So now I have the Go Me, which is the smallest of the Accuquilt cutters. And again, I borrowed this from my little bonus daughter. This is what she uses. So this die will work in there. If you just want to purchase something small only to do hexies, to not have to cut fabric and your dies. So with this one, you actually use a hand crank. And I don't use this one very often, just because of the manual part of it. But it's simple enough. You just put it through and just do the hand crank. And it does the same thing as the electric one. You'll just pull this off like this, slide it. And then again, here are your 9 templates. So I think what can be really helpful with this small one is it can be taken on the go. If you're, going camping or to a cabin or going to visit family or someone, it just folds up like this. And if you want to take scraps or have something to do, this is all you need right here to be able to cut like that. So this is what it would look like if you use the Accuquilt Go for all 9 of your templates using firm stabilizer. So now let's talk about the fabric. So for the fabric, to be able to cut your hexies out of your fabric, you're going to use this part of the die. And you're going to do the same thing as far as the accordion method with folding. So I have 3.5 inch strips here of scrap fabric. This is leftover fabric I'd had from other things. So I'm going to show you first with the scraps, and then, or with the strips, and then I'll show you with the scraps. So again, same thing, just line it up where you're maybe 1/4 inch off, where you've got just a little extra space there. Line that up and make sure you look underneath that the fabric is on all the way around, and you're gonna do the accordion again. Now, depending on how long your scraps are, your strips will make a difference on how many pieces that you actually get out of it. So with the template, we got 9 because that was the width of fabric. Well, for this, particularly for hexies, this is my plan on using up a lot of scrap fabric that I have. I really have needed to find something to use it for besides this one's not going to double over quite enough. So I'm only going to be able to get it this many times folded across. So again, you'll put this on top and you'll pass it through the machine like we did before. And then you'll have your fabric squares. And when we come back, I'll show you what that looks like. So I've passed it through my Accuquilt Go Big, and you just slide this off. And this one happened to be in the way of that one. And so there's just this little teeny small one. And that happened on a few of my cuts. Sometimes you have to snip a piece of thread too. But that happened on a few of my cuts the other night. And if you want, you could cut this size. And these could be used where you just sew it down on some kind of project. But this is the template size, not the fabric size that I'm using. So just keep that in mind there. Okay, so here are the actual squares. This is the waist, so this is what's left. Again, this is all scrap fabric that I'm using. I'm not cutting up any fat quarters or anything like that. You could, of course, if you want to, but for me, I felt like this is a good use of scraps. So I was able to get 1, 2, 3, 4. I was able to get 5 hexies out of that one strip there. So same with this one. This is left over. I think this actually was left over from when I squared up a quilt, and I just saved it because I used this, I believe, for some binding. So I'll do the same thing with this one. Now I want to show you for scrap fabric in which I may just not want to rough cut anything. So these are pieces of fabric. I had used my Accuquilt in making drunkard's paths for a quilt for a little girl that I know. And these were all leftover pieces that I didn't really want to get rid of, but they're shaped kind of a strange way. And so I can either cut these down, rough cut them if I want, the 3.5 inches, or what I did last night was I actually just found an area. So this is the selvage. So I just moved it over just a little bit and just fold it over as is. If you don't want to mess with rough cutting, you can fold it over as is. And it looks like I'll be able to get 1, 2, 3, 4 out of this one. And so I'll go ahead and pass this one through as well. And when we come back, I'll show you that. So here is that with me actually not doing any type of rough cutting. More hexies. So I had 1, 2, I guess I had 3. I thought I had 4. So there's that, just out of scraps without rough cutting those. Now, if you really do want, this is the waist that I had from that. So this is what would be left over right here. So if you really wanted to save that part of your scraps, then you could rough cut these. And you could rough cut them, like I said, 3.5 inches with your ruler and your rotary cutter and actually make those. And then you'd have perfect little strips left over as scraps to use for something else. I often use my scraps in my quilt journal cover pattern that I released in October. I save a lot of little bits, little scraps like that to be able to use for scrappy quilt journal covers. I'll also link that in the notes here for those of you that are not familiar with that pattern. But I really do try to use up scraps in any way that I can. So another option for you with cutting your fabric, you can either cut your 3.5-inch strips, or if you just have strange pieces of fabric laying down of strips, see, this will not fit over, so that would not work. You can just lay those on there and just fold them accordion style like that, and you'll be able to get your hexies, which is so much easier for me than taking a template and cutting around the fabric to make those. So now that we've got our templates cut as well as our fabric for our hexies, the process is easy. There's so many videos on how to actually put them together, but I really wanted to focus on the fact that even though this is a thin stabilizer, it works. So you don't have to use the really thick cardboard. So you would do it just like you normally would with your EPP if you were using like the cardboard templates. You just put that there. You can see how it lines up. You've got roughly, it's about 1/2 inch that's left over hanging on that. And then I have, this was a glue stick I had. It's a fabric glue stick by Quilter Select, but you can use any kind of glue stick that you want. And then I put it on the actual paper because that way I don't warp my fabric. And then because it's firm enough on the edge, it folds over. You're still able to use this really well as your guide to be able to fold that over well. So you just fold it over just like you would your normal process for your hexies, and just glue that all the way around, right up to the lip there of that. And again, I like to do it on the actual template rather than on the fabric, and it folds over. And you could put a little dot behind this if you want. When you first put it down, one little dot. I meant to do that, but I forgot. Fold that over. And then we've got one more to go. One more side. And there you go. There's your hexie. And you don't have to take out the stabilizer. You can leave it in. And for me, that was why I got to thinking and brainstorming, what can I do in which I do not have to buy paper templates? What do I have that already works? And I had the Accuquilt system, so that worked for me. And if you don't have the Accuquilt system, again, you could get the Go Me, which is relatively inexpensive compared to the other ones. You can find the Go Me's on eBay as well, if for some reason, or you know a friend that maybe has one that was free that was sent with other purchases that they have. And then again, you need this die and this mat. And then if you want to be able to make your own, you can. Now, the only drawback is these are not reusable. So, you know, a lot of people pull them out, of course, and reuse them. I did not want to have to mess with pulling those out. And when this is washed, this will be like thin fabric, like fabric softener strips. And there you go. So these are ones that I did yesterday, and they're already dry, and you can get a feel for how that looks. And the edge of those templates are firm enough to be able to get you a nice, smooth, straight line when you fold your fabric over. So there you go. And you'll see how these will work when you line all these up. Of course, I'll have to do these other ones, and I'll show you here when I'm finished gluing these what the end product will look like. And here we go, quilty friends. Here is my little hexie that is all ready to be stitched up. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. It really was exciting for me to be able to learn with looking at what I had here on how I could make these cute hexies. I have been admiring them for months now, and I know some of you and some of my quilty friends have been making them, and I'm partial to little flowers. I love flowers for one, but also little flowers are part of my logo. And so I am so happy to be able to come up with a way that I can cut my fabrics very quickly, as well as my own templates that don't have to be removed. And for me, it's the Accuquilt die and the Accuquilt cutter, as well as the firm stabilizer. So here's my little kit. I'm ready for when we go to the cabin in a few weekends for our anniversary, as well as to visit my dad, and also some fun camping this summer. I now have something to do with my hands, and the prep time for all of this was so much quicker. So this is my little kit. I'll show you what's in here. I've got the needle minder. I've got some really nice needles. I've got my thread. This is my thread wax. I have a fabric glue stick. And then lastly, my Havel snips, all in this cute little handmade custom wooden box. This box is from a wonderful maker in Ukraine. This was a gift last year from my husband. Many of you know my real name is Melissa, but my nickname that I go by is Belle. So this is a wonderful box. It's handmade out of wood. She's not shipping right now, of course, because of the horrible things, our hearts are heavy, that are happening in Ukraine. But when she's up and running again, her shop is just wonderful with a lot of embroidery items. And so this will be my little travel box that I use to be able to make hexies for projects. I'm so excited. I'm Belle from Seam Sew Me. Feel free to leave any comments, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can also follow me on Instagram at seams_sew, SEW_me. Till next time, quilty friends, make lovely things.